I am very experienced with a variety of psychedelic drugs, having used a variety of tryptamines and phenethylamines. Mushrooms are the ally I am most comfortable with, and I had combined 1 to 3 grams of mushrooms with 1 to 3 grams of Syrian rue with positive results several times in the past. I had one prior experience mixing mushrooms and cappy. I had attempted the mimosa rue mix once before using 2 grams of rue and 5 grams of mimosa bark, but this had proved very weak and left little impression on me. No medications or other plants, herbs had been used in the previous week, except for cannabis and yerba mate, which are an all day, everyday thing for me usually. As a precaution, only MOI compatible food was eaten for 2 days prior and 1 day after the combined experiences. Consumption of yerba mate was limited to 2 cups daily during this period, as I didn't want to risk developing a headache, as some people have described. The experience, written in the lingering aftermath, yesterday already seems like a world away, so I'd better write it down now before it fades. I had worked up the courage and felt psychologically ready to enter the world of ayahuasca analog brews. Under the advice of another member, I was going to use the combination of Syrian rue seeds and Mimosa hostilis root bark. A friend had recommended the combination of Syrian rue seeds and Mimosa hostilis root bark. He told me 20 grams of mimosa cooked 3 times and possibly up to 10 grams of rue tea boiled down to 1 shot. Very intense, and I think a good starting dose. At this point, I should mention that this is far above what anyone who is not very extremely experienced with psychedelics should contemplate taking. He was recommending this dosage to me as the full, immersive, mind shattering kind of introduction. After reading some freaky reports of people apparently tripping balls on as little as 8 grams, I decided to scale down the dosages somewhat. This might have been a mistake, as during the experience I felt no fear and could gone deeper. There was this little voice in the back of my head that said, "Okay, that looks like a lot of mimosa bark in the pot. That should be enough. Ignore that voice." As Terence McKenna says, when in doubt, double the dosage. But this time it took longer to come on. My sense of time remained intact for a good 45 minutes after starting to drink the tea. This was around 12:30, and I knew I had to go back to the university around 3:30 to mark some final lab data. We were running TLC plates, and my group was relying on me to come in that afternoon when they had finished running and mark the positions on the TLC paper before the signals faded. Somehow, I thought I had enough time to trip balls and still come down and go do this lab stuff. Doing too many psychedelics can mess up your sense of time. Maybe it was because I had tripped and come back in 2 hours the day before, but somehow I was expecting to be relatively back to reality within 3 hours. Silly rabbit. Around 1:30, I looked at the clock and thought, okay, I'm totally tripping right now, but that's okay. It's still 2 hours before I have to go. But instead of slacking off, this trip kept getting deeper and deeper. I was getting into some really deep trains of thought, rather depressing ones actually. CEVs of plain dogfights from Wee-Wee-Two and elite SS soldiers marching in lines. I felt all my social obligations and expectations to be shackles on me, and wondered why I forced myself to be miserable so much of the time just to please other people. Suddenly it's 3:30 and I'm tripping harder than ever. What am I going to do? The copy vine was making it very clear to me that the healing isn't over yet. All I wanted to do is lay there and try to keep sane as I watched the ceiling writhe and twist. But no, I had to start screwing myself up to going out into the world and dealing with shit. I began to get quite anxious. After a while, I noticed a thick, foamy spittle in my mouth, which about 3 seconds later became an intense need to vomit. Not that there was really anything in my stomach, but I did manage to throw up, spit up, blow out my nose vast amounts of foamy mucus. Yes, isn't that pleasant? All right, fine. So I'm getting rid of all the accumulated poisons in my body. Well and good. But I'm supposed to be finishing my lab right now. Panic. A second wave of purging comes over me. After it passes, I see this little dead ladybug that's been on my bathroom floor for a couple of days. But wait, it's moving, wriggling its legs around. I'm so messed up that for a while I actually entertained the notion that I somehow brought this ladybug back to life. So I'm thinking about this ladybug, helpless on its back. Should I flip it over? Should I give it another chance at life? I look closer. It's not alive at all. Rather, there's another bug chewing its heart out. The wriggling legs I saw were the legs of a different bug entirely. This freaked me out and disgusted me a lot, but was a very good metaphor for how I was feeling at that exact moment in time. Like the world was a filthy insect chewing away at my vital organs. So I finally get myself together and leave the house. Another 45 minutes have passed, what with the puking my guts out and all. Before leaving, I look in the mirror and see my massive pupils and flesh white and pasty, drained of blood. Great. Everything should go smoothly as long as no one looks at my saucer-sized pupils. I still can't believe I'm about to go into university while plus tripping and just having purged on Silahuasca. I must be crazy. On the walk over, I'm still screwing myself up to what I have to do. It becomes a game almost. There was an undeniable thrill at the thought of trying to navigate a normal, everyday learning situation whilst having one of the most intense trips I'd had in a long time. I mean, I've done lots of things whilst high on psychedelics, just never biochemistry lab stuff. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to do it. I just can't fuck up. It'll be really bad if I fuck up. I imagined suddenly puking a bunch of Silahuasca all over my TLC plate. Yes, that would be hard to explain to my lab partners, wouldn't it? I have to cross this overpass with a train station just before I get to the university. And I'm surprised to see one of my lab partners walking across the overpass at exactly the same time as me, but in the opposite direction. She waves me over and says, "You aren't going to check the lab data now, are you? All right. All right, just play it cool," I say to myself. No one else knows what's going on inside your head. "Yes, I'm going there now," I reply to her. She explains that she had just gone and checked the data so that I don't need to go now. What? I don't have to go? Hallelujah. My prayers have been answered. Now I know how hard it is not to tell this cute girl you're tripping balls on Silahuasca, but just keep your mouth shut. She doesn't need to know. I'd be a lot of hassle to explain. It's too difficult to explain the concept of Silahuasca even when straight. Plus, then she might think you're some kind of freak. Who does a bunch of psychedelics and then goes to lab still tripping anyways? What's wrong with me? Does she know I'm on drugs? I think she knows. Well, maybe not. I say goodbye to her and head off before making a fool out of myself. So now I'm walking home, feeling very relieved and kind of thinking that the Cappy just arranged things so that I wouldn't have to go into the university. I mean, what are the chances that my lab partner would spontaneously decide to check the data that I was supposed to be gathering? And not only that, but I would run into her just after she checked the data, thus saving my poor schizophrenic mind from having to deal with it? Synchronicity at its finest. I end up going for a walk in a park near my house because I'm still tripping very hard, and walking is calming me down a little bit. There was this puddle of murky, milky brown water flowing out of a parking lot and into the road. I spent a while standing and watching the beautiful swirling patterns made by the flow of the silty water. Hopefully no one was watching me, as I probably looked pretty stupid, completely dazzled and enthralled by a scummy puddle of water. I'm walking past this elementary school, and these 5 kids start giggling. You know, the let's try really hard not to laugh at this person as they go by kind of giggling. Maybe I looked funny. I think I gave them the biggest contact high of their lives, because the closer I got, the more and more hysterical their laughter became. 5 kids killing themselves laughing at me whilst I'm tripping my ass off was a bit much to handle. What should I do? Well, I could just ignore them, pretend I can't hear. That's what an adult should do, right? Instead, I decided to throw a snowball at them. This only resulted in another wave of hysterical giggling and a couple snowballs half-heartedly thrown back at me. "You suck! You call that a throw?" I yell back at them, Uh, then I feel really weird. I'm insulting children and having a snowball fight whilst tripping. Is this what normal people do? Definitely not. I continue walking, and there's this feeling that I've regressed to infancy. I was nothing but a big baby. To further this notion, I hear a baby screaming. This fat lady is walking down the block, pushing her kid in a stroller, and the kid is bawling and bawling without end. I mean, literally for 5 minutes, I watched this lady plodding along, her infant screaming, clearly audible an entire field away. It was surreal. Don't you want to try and comfort your child? Are you hoping that by letting him cry now, his batteries will wind down? I was feeling so many intense emotions at once, I didn't know what to do with myself. I half wanted to die because there was so much destruction all around me that was caused by humans. Senseless destruction, like this area of trees I enjoy going to, but a lot of stupid stoners hang out there. They come and they break big branches and limbs off the trees for no real reason, just for some stupid entertainment because they are drunk and stoned. So the trees are scarred and bleeding and wounded, and some even have spray paint graffiti on them. It's no longer the comforting, clean, natural place it once was, where I could smoke a bowl under a spruce tree standing up, with the branches coming down to ground level all around me. Now all the lower branches are snapped off. The other half of me felt more intensely alive than ever. Life, squared, cubed, to the ninth degree. Being so intensely alive that every breath hurts to take. The late afternoon sun was warm and comforting. I thought about the sun and whether it could be considered to be God. Is the sun powerful enough to be God? I asked, to which the response was, no, he's gone behind a cloud. Seeing as the sun was behind a cloud, I began to get rather chilly and headed home. It was now around 4.5 hours since beginning to drink the tea. I was still plus plus tripping, but definitely beginning to repair. I didn't trust myself with any food yet, but after coming home, I warmed up and began to slowly drink a cup of yerba mate. I passed on an offer of dinner with the excuse I was feeling kind of sick, which I suppose was true in a way. It is now 7 hours after ingestion, and I'm mostly back to normal again. I feel very weak and shaky, though, probably partly from the lack of food, but the copy plus mushrooms was not a recreational experience. I'm shaking now because it took me so far out. I feel I've subjected myself to rather severe stress today. Was it a good idea taking the Silahuasca today? No. Am I glad I took it? Yes. Did I have a sufficiently deep experience this time? Almost too deep. I went right over the cataract and flailed around on the other side, staring back to the calm and placid reality I'd so willingly smashed. Thanks for reading.